It is incredibly easy for Microschools to rank at the top of Google Maps right now. Ranking at the top of Google Maps means showing up right at the top of Google search results when people are looking for a microschool. These are parents who have already been sold on the microschool concept, and they're just trying to decide which school to schedule a tour at, so it's incredibly valuable to be there. In this video, I'm going to show you everything you need to know, including a quick 5-second trick to rank higher in Google Maps. The first step is going to be creating what is called a Google Business Profile. This is required for ranking in Google Maps, and one of the reasons it's so easy to rank high as a microschool is that a lot of microschools aren't even taking this step. It's very easy to do. You just go to business.google.com and follow the steps there. While the process for creating your Google Business Profile are very simple, sometimes verification can be a challenge. You see, Google wants to make sure you're a legitimate business, and so they're going to ask you to prove it, usually by recording a video. So it's very important that you wait until you already have a location before you start this process. You're going to need to show some kind of signage on the door or showing yourself getting access to an employee-only area where you can show official business documentation. All right, let's talk about the actual factors to determine how you rank in Google Maps. The most important factor, unfortunately, is one that's completely outside of your control, and that's the location of your building. This is because Google wants to show businesses that are close to the searcher. So proximity is the number one factor. You're naturally going to rank higher when the person searching for microschools is near your school. Of the factors that you do have control over, there's one that is both the most impactful and the easiest. This is that 5-second hack, and that is the title of your Google Business Profile. If you have the term you're trying to rank for in the title of that Google Business Profile, you will naturally rank significantly higher when people are searching for that. So what does this mean in practice? It typically means adding the word microschool to the title of your Google Business Profile. Now, that being said, there are some states where it's not actually legal to call yourself a microschool. Some founders choose to use this in their title anyways, and they take their chances. You might be hit with a cease and desist, but other founders like to play it safe. If you're not including the word microschool, you might choose something like learning center or homeschooling co-op, or whatever term you feel best describes your school. However, it's important to use a term that people are already searching for. Coming up with some novel term that you think really captures the essence of your school is great, but when we're talking about ranking in Google, if no one is searching for the term, it really doesn't matter that you're rank 1 for it. So we want to find terms that people are actively searching for. As an example of how powerful this can be, I did this for a client who was not ranking anywhere in her city for the term microschool. We literally changed nothing else. We just put the word microschool in her business title. And as you can see here, she immediately jumped up to number 2 for the term microschool in her area and in the top 10 across the entire city. One more disclaimer on this tip. Google technically requires that the title of your Google Business Profile be the actual title of your business. So we are breaking Google's terms of service here. However, I've done this for thousands of businesses. I've never seen a business get suspended. That doesn't mean it couldn't happen. Google has the right to suspend your business for doing this, and so you should know the risk going in. If you want to avoid the risk, you can always file a DBA. It's a pretty simple process in most states. And then to be extra safe, you might want to get a version of your logo that also has that title. Unfortunately, that's the only quick hack that's going to push you up in Google Maps. There are hundreds of other things you can do, and we're going to talk about the most impactful ones. The next step is just completing your entire Google Business Profile. So once it's set up, this is what it'll look like when you Google your business or go to edit your profile. You see the listing that everyone else sees here on the right. Peak Academy was nice enough to let me use their listing as an example. And on the left here, you can see all the options you have as the owner or manager of this listing. So you're just going to go to edit profile here, and you're going to see that Google gives you a lot of information that you can include about your school. I recommend filling in everything you possibly can. For business category, make sure you choose a category that most fits your business. If you're a licensed school, include school here. After that, you can have up to 9 additional categories. So just search for anything that describes your school. Learning center, anything with school that is true for your school. Of course, we don't want to call ourselves a school if we're not. Anything with education, don't stretch it though. Only include terms that are actually true for your school. Fill out your complete description, add an opening date. Every option that Google gives you to provide more information on your school, take it. The more complete this profile is, the better you will rank and the more likely someone is to choose your school. Chat is something that's completely up to you. You can enable text messages or WhatsApp chat, and that allows people to message you directly on Google Maps through your Google Business Profile. I would just make sure that you have someone that can actually answer that chat when those text messages come in. But if you're able to respond to those text messages, I highly recommend it. You want to make it as easy as possible for parents to contact you. It is incredibly common for someone to be right on the fence of whether or not they reach out, and just making it that much easier can make the difference in whether or not they reach out and become one of your next families. So as you can see, there are a ton of fields that you can fill out here. I've actually made a checklist that goes through how you should fill out every field so that your business profile is optimized, and you can get that checklist by signing up for the link in the video description. You'll also see on the main page here that Google will recommend some things you can do to improve your listing. Just note that they're also going to sprinkle in some suggestions to pay them money, okay? They make money by selling ads, so don't feel like running ads is a necessary part of setting up your Google Business Profile. Google Ads have their place, but I don't recommend following their advice and just starting an ad campaign without any expertise. I'll share one pro tip from my checklist here in the video. It's this Edit Services button. If you click this, you will see a list of all your categories. Peak only has one right now. But underneath each category, you can list as many services as you want to. And you can actually type in anything you want for these services. It'll give you some recommendations, and you can add the ones that are relevant to your microschool. Don't add any that aren't. But you can also just click Add Custom Service. And this is where you can add any terms that you want to rank for. And you can add 20, 30, 40 terms here. It doesn't matter. I recommend adding anything that you think people might be searching for and that you offer. So alternative education maybe is something you could type here. Any term that you think parents might type into that isn't an option as a category, add it as a service underneath whatever the most relevant category is. Now, the services that Peak has listed here are not good examples of what you should include. Low ratios is not a service. School would be a category if they are a licensed school. And then this is more of a description. So again, you're just thinking of terms that people would use to describe your school or things you offer. Another example would be like tutoring or summer camp. Anything you offer, add it as a service underneath the most relevant category. While it might not help with ranking, it's also very important to be adding photos to your listing. Just get in the habit of regularly taking photos. If you're just starting out, do what Peak has done here. Make sure you at least have a photo of each room and the outside of the building. But then also just try to get in the habit of regularly taking photos and videos of the students. This is why I recommend all microschools include a media release in the contract that parents sign. All right, so your Google Business Profile is complete. The next step is maybe the most impactful, but also the most challenging, and that's reviews. Getting reviews on your Google Business Profile is incredibly important, not just for ranking high in Google, but also for what we call conversion rate. In other words, parents aren't just looking at your listing. They're going to look at other microschools as well. And reviews are the number one factor they're going to consider when choosing which school to schedule a tour at. So getting some 5-star reviews on your listing is crucial. And for ranking purposes, it's not just about how many reviews you have, it's also about the frequency. Google doesn't want to just see businesses that once got a lot of reviews. They want to make sure you're continuing to get reviews. And so trying to get at least one review a month should be a goal of yours. Now, for microschools in particular, this is very challenging. You're not a restaurant that might see hundreds of customers a day. You have one set of families for an entire year. So it becomes even more important that you get a review from every single parent. And I mean mom and dad, maybe grandma and grandpa if you can. So there are tools out there that'll help you get reviews, but nothing helps more than just asking. Make sure all the parents at your school understand how important reviews are for your business. And you're probably going to have to remind them more than once. Don't worry. Happy parents want to help you. They will be glad to leave you a review if they know how much it helps. And when they forget and you remind them, they'll be appreciative. Here's another pro tip. If a parent does leave you a good review, ask them if they're willing to say it on video. I know this can be uncomfortable to ask for, but getting a video of a parent talking about your school is priceless. I'll have another video talking about how you can utilize video reviews, but this is gold if you can get a parent to agree to it. So reviews are a never-ending process. You should keep trying to get one a month. But the next thing that you're going to want to focus on your listing is your website. So that's one of the fields you're going to fill out when you're filling out your Google Business Profile. But the website itself can determine your rankings. Now, websites are important, but I actually don't think they're quite as important as a Google Business Profile. And that's why for founders that already have a location, I actually recommend prioritizing your Google Business Profile even above your website. This is what most people are going to see when they Google Microschools, and so having it set up well is important. But now that it's set up, we want to make sure your website does a good job of showing your school. Most importantly, we want to make sure the title of your website matches what you're trying to rank for. So in this case, we're looking at Peak's website, and this is what Google would consider the title. It's the H1 or heading 1 of their page, and it looks great. However, it doesn't have the keywords we're trying to rank for. There's also one other place you put your title. It's what's called the meta title. It's invisible on the page, but it's what Google uses to display your website in their search results. Having the keyword you're trying to rank for in both the H1 and the meta title is like 50% of optimizing your website. So make sure that term you're trying to rank for is in the H1, in the meta title, and the rest of the page should just have all the information a parent would need to take that next step. As you can see here, Peak has a long way to go. There's a lot more information we could share here. There are better ways to structure it, and we're going to be doing all of that in another video about how to optimize your homepage and your website. All right, let's talk about the final factor that determines your ranking in Google Maps, and I have one more free bonus for you. The last factor is something we call citations. A citation is just a fancy word in SEO for a mention of your business online. This is mostly going to be directory listings, but it can be any web page that lists the name, address, phone number, and website of your business. You see, not only is it good to show up in these directories because people sometimes use them, it's actually even more important for ranking in Google. Google expects legitimate businesses to be in these directories, and so they look through them to determine whether or not you're legitimate. You're going to want to start with the big four. That's Google Business Profile, Apple Business Connect, Bing Places, which you can actually just import directly from Google into Bing, and Facebook. All of these you have to do manually. For the smaller directories, I recommend using a service. I use BrightLocal. They charge about $3 to manually submit your Microschool to any of these other directories, and I would recommend submitting yourself to about the top 25 directories. You can do more if you want to. You can also submit yourself to what's called data aggregators, which will then propagate your school out to hundreds of other directories, but those are generally lower quality, and if you don't have a lot of funds right now, I would just stick with the top 25 recommended here by BrightLocal. They'll also be included in the link in the description below. But as a microschool, the most important directories you can be in are microschool specific directories. Not only do parents actually use these directories, but Google trusts them even more because they're specific to microschools. As I was working on this video, KaiPod Academy, who has their own directory, was nice enough to collaborate with me and give me a couple extra ideas for you. One of those is to just Google microschools in your city. See what comes up. You'll probably find there's a few microschool directories that are specific to your city only. You definitely want to be in there. There's no better directory to be in. And then to get into KaiPod's directory, which is one of the biggest, you can join their private Facebook group. KaiPod was also nice enough to just give me the link they share in that group, so you can also find that in the video description. And of course, if you want a full list of all the microschool directories that I recommend submitting yourself to, you can sign up for the link in the description. When creating any citation for your microschool, it is very important that the title of your school is exactly the same. Whatever title you put in your Google Business Profile, use that for any directory you submit it to or any time your school is mentioned online. This will help Google feel confident that the school being mentioned is the same school. Now, before you start submitting yourself to these directories, I should provide one disclaimer that the National Microschooling Center shared with me, and that's that more visibility also leads to more scrutiny. Some microschools are operating in what might be a legal gray area, and just know that putting your name out there, especially if you include the word microschool in your title, is going to lead to more eyeballs on your school. If you feel like I left out anything important or you just have a question, please leave it in the comments below. I promise I will answer every one. And if you found this video valuable, please like and subscribe. I'm going to be making a lot more content like this.